How we doing, folks? Your host Moose here on the Pitt Panthers Football Network, back for the Week 13 NCAA recap show for your Pittsburgh Panthers. And Pitt coming off a tough loss, 31-24 to the North Carolina Tar Heels last week. Really tough break for them in the overall scope of the ACC Championship and even possible BCS Championship schemes. And the Panthers will have a tough go of it next week as well, taking on a Miami team that beat Virginia last week 45-0. So a lot of big victories here in the ACC last week as we look at them. Louisville with a big win, Virginia Tech, Florida State, Clemson with an easy win, and Georgia Tech. So all the favorites ended up coming away with victories as you would expect. Around the NCAA in the top 25 last week, of course, we can check out the teams in the ACC that won, but Florida with a blowout victory over Missouri. Washington, big win over Oregon State. Ohio State stays unbeaten. Wisconsin improves, 31-10 win over Northwestern. Connecticut knocks off 9-1 USF, big win for the Huskies there. Penn State 38-6 over Michigan State. Arkansas State stays unbeaten with a victory over Troy, 35-18. UCLA 56-31 over USC. Alabama 31-13 over Texas A&M to stay in the hunt for the national title. TCU with an overtime victory over Texas Tech, 34-31. LSU 24-14 over Auburn. Arizona 42-37 over Utah. Texas over Baylor. And Oklahoma State over winless Kansas, 35-13. So with the results of those games, we take a look at our players of the week. Defensively, Buffalo middle linebacker Jarrett Franklin with a huge win over Bowling Green. 9 tackles, 4 for a loss, a sack, forced a fumble, and recovered 2 fumbles. Travis Johnson for Oregon, almost 400 yards of offense and 5 total touchdowns in a victory over Colorado. We go to the ACC. Deshaun Watson, senior quarterback, 384 yards passing and 4 touchdowns in a win over Boston College. And DeJuan Drennan in a victory over your Pitt Panthers, 5 tackles, 1 for a loss, as well as 3 sacks, and he forced a fumble. So big performance from the senior linebacker. That leads us into our Heisman talk. Deshaun Watson taking over the top spot in our projected Heisman voting with a big victory over Boston College. Lamar Jackson, only a 2-touchdown performance against North Carolina State, drops him down to 2. JT Barrett sitting pretty with a 3-touchdown performance. He is 3rd in the Heisman projections. Luke Falk, Washington State quarterback, now at 4th, with Deshaun Kaiser of Notre Dame bringing up the rear in an all-quarterback Heisman affair. So we expect a quarterback to take home the Heisman Trophy. We'll now move on to the top 25 polls, both the AP as well as the BCS rankings here around the NCAA. And Clemson and Ohio State, your consensus number 1 and number 2 as your lone unbeaten Power 5 teams remaining. Arkansas State, though, looking to break that BCS bubble as they sit number 7 in the country at 10-0. A lot of teams, though, with their hands in the cookie jar trying to get into that national championship game. Miami, LSU, Alabama, all one-loss teams with potential things to say about the resultant national championship game. We can see then we've got Tennessee, Arkansas, Oklahoma State down towards the lower ends of the polls. USC's dropped to 21st. Your Pitt Panthers fall to 23rd after their tough loss to 4-6 North Carolina. So the Panthers 8-3, 23rd in the country at this current moment in time. And now we'll take a look at the BCS standings. And of course, your lone unbeatens, Clemson, Ohio State, they are number 1 and number 2. Arkansas State a little bit lower down in the polls as they try to bust the BCS, 9th in the BCS rankings. LSU, Miami, Alabama, all teams to watch coming down the stretch here. If either Clemson or Ohio State falters, you could expect them to jump into the BCS national championship game, especially Miami with a potential showdown against Clemson here coming up. Bowl projections, your Pitt Panthers 8-3 projected to take on 6-5 Auburn of the SEC in the Belk Bowl as it stands right now on the 27th of December. If we look at the BCS Bowls as it stands currently, Alabama, UCLA projected to take on each other in the Rose Bowl game, TCU and Arkansas State in the Fiesta Bowl, LSU and Penn State in the Sugar Bowl, Miami and Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl, and Ohio State and Clemson in your national championship game. So really interesting matchups, but we'll have to see how things shake out here in the final couple weeks of the season as we head towards conference championship week. Some big games, though, even before that. Ohio State looking to stay unbeaten. Big rivalry game with Jim Harbaugh's Michigan, who've really struggled this year, only 6-5, but at home trying to knock off the Buckeyes. Herb Street going with his alma mater. picking an Ohio State win. Big Florida rivalry, University of Florida and Florida State taking on each other. Florida State, not had a great season, only 7-4, but Herb Street sees them winning this one. LSU, go Tigers, taking on Arkansas in this matchup. LSU looking to stay in the national championship hunt and the SEC title hunt. Herb Street sees them coming away victorious. And then Notre Dame taking on USC. Notre Dame trying to get back to the BCS. Herb Street sees them being victorious over the Trojans and continuing that line of dominance in that regard. And then, of course, a big ranked matchup in Pittsburgh this week. Your Pitt Panthers taking on the Miami Hurricanes, who are number 3 in the country, led by the rocket arm of Brad Kaya, who's led a fantastic offense, and that is going to be the matchup to watch here, as Herb Street is picking your Pitt Panthers. Bold pick, considering the matchup to watch is the struggling Pitt Panthers pass defense, number 125 in the country, against the number 11 pass offense in the country for the Miami Hurricanes. So that's going to be the matchup. If the Panthers can keep the Miami passing attack down, they may have a chance to pull off the victory here, but it'll be a tough ask for a secondary that's been very, very stretched this season, though they have shown signs of improvement lately, although they had a bit of a downturn against North Carolina. Miami, if we take a look, they've had some tight victories. They lost once against Clemson. They may have a rematch with them in the ACC championship game, but they've come away with tight victories against Virginia Tech, 7 points, 2 points against Florida State, 9 points against Wisconsin. So in tight ranked matchups, they seem to come away victorious, though they'll look to have a second crack at Clemson should they escape your Pitt Panthers in this week's matchup. For Pitt, if you want to refresh on their schedule, very inconsistent. Some big wins over Penn State, Oklahoma State, lost to Clemson and Virginia Tech, and then, of course, the big downturn against North Carolina last week. But the Panthers, one of the toughest schedules in the entire country. You can see they've got 5 ranked opponents that are in the top 16 of the country right now on their schedule. And of course, the one they're taking on this week, number 3 Miami, led by Brad Kaya, 23 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So he's been fantastic for them. Yearby, very solid, 10 carries for a touchdown as well this year. So balanced attack for Miami, though they'll look to exploit that Pitt Panthers secondary as it stands right now. For the Panthers, they're led by Ben DiNucci under center. Very, very inconsistent. He had a bunch of turnovers last week against North Carolina. I believe 3 interceptions and a fumble. So tough for him. He'll look to bounce back here, and he'll look to utilize the dual threat rushing attack of Quadri Olson and Darren Hall, who have both been very, very impressive this season for your Pitt Panthers. So you're going to have to let us know in the comments, what is going to be the score of this Pitt-Miami game? Can the Panthers pull the upset at home, or will Miami head into a rematch against Clemson in the ACC championship game with a bid in the national title game on the line? Is Ohio State going to stay unbeaten? Will any other teams fall this week? How are things going to shake out? Let us know in the comments. We really appreciate you watching. As always, hail to Pitt, and we'll see you guys for the Pitt-Miami matchup. Take care. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.